Hey, it's Camo with the Nashville Access Show presented by Solis North Gulch Apartments, where taste matters. Got a great show for you today. I'm really excited to have our guest. He's been nominated for JUNO Awards, which are the Canadian equivalent of the Grammys. He's won Canadian Country Music Association Awards. He's toured Canada with Brad Paisley. He's shared the stage with Garth Brooks. And never mind all those big names, he's a true talent in his own right. Brett Kissel, man.
Well, thank you.
Great to have you on the show.
Likewise. Thank you very much for having me.
Sit down. Wow.
You got a great spot here, so I'm very, very happy that you invited me in.
Oh, it's great to have you. You are as close to a star as you can get in Canada, I guess. Or you are a star in Canada.
It's very kind of you to say, but as a Canadian, I don't think any of us would ever actually accept that. No, we're humble people. To be honest, I'm a dad and a husband, and I happen to play country music. That's my career. But,
now, I read a thing where because you have lived on the family farm.
Correct. Yeah.
And was it after you won a CCMA award for male vocalist? Your grandfather came in like the next morning at 6 o'clock, and you're still on the high of
course.
I won the award, and your grandfather said, "Get out of bed. You still got a farm to run."
Yeah, well, anybody who grew up in that rural lifestyle, I think,
from Alberta,
absolutely can understand that is very much the way of life, and so it's a bit of a catchphrase that I ain't no country star on the farm, because it was after the Canadian Country Awards, but also after a festival that we played called the Big Valley Jamboree,
which is huge.
Yeah, and it's awesome. So everybody's played there. I mean, George Strait's been there, Luke Bryan's been there, and everything. And so I remember Grandpa's banging on the door, and I'm telling him, I'm trying to explain, I say, "Grandpa, don't you realize I just played this show and just did this?" I maybe had 2 hours of sleep, and obviously, as a guy in my early 20s or late teens. Because of course in Canada you can drink at 18. I was saying I was probably hungover a little
Except
bit.
in Ontario.
Ontario's 19, but they just cross the border and they go to Alberta. So I literally told my grandpa, I said, "Look, I'm so tired. Can you just let me sleep in?" And that's when he just busted down the door and he says, "Wake up, you ain't no country star on the farm." So I've never forgotten that.
That's hilarious. That really stuck out to me as a great story, a real story as well. You seem to be quite famous everywhere except the U.S. And that's what you're working on now, is cracking that U.S. market. That's a big challenge.
It certainly is, but for me, I mean, I'm excited for the opportunity. I think that there's some great momentum and some great energy that I can harness from the lessons that I've learned north of the border, and performing in the UK and around Europe and stuff like that, and bring that to the American market. But at the same time, I don't want to think, if you use a sports analogy, just because you did well in a different league, you're going to do well here. I'm a big hockey fan, so you have these guys are from Russia, are incredible talents over here, and they come to the National Hockey League and think, okay, they're going to challenge for a Stanley Cup. I understand, I think, the game here in the United States and how high the stakes are. So I think a lot of it is even out of my hands. If you've got a hit song and you got some believers, I think I can do well.
I think, again, it all comes, this is a constant theme when we have musical guests. It always comes down to the song.
For sure.
If you've got a great song, you'll do well. And so many young artists that are trying to start out, they don't have the great song. And that's why it's such an uphill battle for them. But you've got a track record of having really great songs that have done very well. How many top 10 hits on Canadian radio? To
be honest, I don't know. If I went through each record, we've been lucky. Everything that we've had go to radio has had some great success. But bringing that down here to the States and having great partners at satellite radio, all of your streaming services, obviously radio across the United States, is a big goal for me, and I think for our team. And you're absolutely right. Everybody's going to tell you that it has to start with a great song, and then after that, if you want longevity in the business, then you have to have a great show. Yeah. So I think,
and it's because that's where you make your money, is the shows.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're not selling records like we used to in 1999. All those stories of my heroes and stuff.
That party like it's 1999.
Wouldn't that have been a great time?
Yeah.
Would that have been a great time?
But so many Canadian artists have come down here, and some have enjoyed success, and others just hasn't worked. You know, the big ones like Anne Murray and people like that.
For sure.
But Michelle Wright came down here, and through unfortunate circumstances, the label folding, that was kind of a bummer for her.
Yeah, of course.
But it's nice to see you guys coming down.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I think one of the biggest things that I've found, because I love this genre and country music so much. So for obviously everybody watching, the biggest thing is I treat Canada obviously as its own territory, its own entity. But there are people that come from Texas that really make it big in Texas and then try to crack in Nashville. There are people that come out of Georgia
and selling out.
And you know what? That can happen for sure in that market. I've got friends in the business there, and they got to navigate those waters. But you know what? Everybody has a chance, no matter where you're from, because Shania Twain is from Timmins, Ontario, very, very small northern Ontario town, and has become one of the biggest artists in the history of our format. And then you look at anybody else, from small towns. We know that Carrie Underwood had surmountable odds against her, and wins a talent show on TV and becomes arguably the greatest female vocalist that we've ever had in this business. And I mean, everybody has a story. And for me, I think what keeps me going is that everybody has a chance, no matter where you're from.
And I like your story because it's so grounded. It is a country story, which, that's the authenticity of the music you perform.
Well, thank you.
And Canadian country tends to be maybe a little bit more traditional, and I think that the time is right for that here, the pendulum swinging back to be a little bit more traditional.
I think that's a good point. I mean, some would argue, back home in Canada that, we still have great pop country artists, we still have great rock country artists, but I do love the pendulum swinging now a little bit back more towards the traditional side. It doesn't mean that Old Town Road can't be a massive hit. It doesn't mean that Kane Brown and Sam Hunt with their more hip-hop influence can't have incredible songs, but you see Midland, you see the vocalist in Chris Stapleton, you see, I saw Dee White actually perform in the Grand Ole Opry, really enjoyed that. You see people with their rhinestone suits now enjoying success at the Ryman Auditorium in the Grand Ole Opry, Casey Musgraves. It's amazing that I think our genre, which is the most encompassing and accepting genre of all, is allowing all these different sides of country music to play well together in the same sandbox.
I've always argued that country music has always been a very big tent, and it's the only genre that brings in all these influences and can make it country.
I agree.
And
it has for years. I mean, you look at Glenn Campbell introducing symphonies and stuff like that.
Even go back to Cash. Cash was rockabilly. He was blackballed by the country market. Yeah. But comes in and okay, we'll take that.
And now he's a
country icon. Yeah.
Absolutely. And everybody had that. Garth Brooks was there's a lot of negative press surrounding him because the way he did his show, he didn't stand up there and just sing ballads, like even a lot of his heroes, and he can, but he said, look, my heroes are Billy Joel, and I loved watching Kiss. Yeah. And so he would go and put on that type of
He was the first one that said that he listened to music other than country music. Yeah. And, I go to Boston shows, go to Kiss shows, that's what I want to give my fans. Yeah. And look where he is now. Well, and look at how you shared a stage with him.
Garth might catch on. You never know. He keeps working hard.
These kids. How cool is that, sharing a stage with Garth?
I'm glad you asked. It was one of the most incredible experiences that I've ever had in my life. Not just my career, but I think to get to stand shoulder to shoulder with him was an amazing opportunity. I tried to. People can watch that now on YouTube or my Instagram and determine that for themselves.
But it could, for artists like yourself who haven't been in the industry as long as Garth, and he's that much of an icon. And I don't say hold your own in a you're not as good kind of way. I don't mean
I don't.
But it's so easy to get intimidated by somebody of that stature, no matter what level you're at.
I agree, and of course, you know, there's that factor, but to add an extra layer of nerves and pressure is that my show got rained out that afternoon, or that evening at 7:30. So I wasn't able to go out and do my show.
Yeah.
When Garth called me up, spoke to me backstage, and he said, "I'm going to call you up for Friends in Low Places." So of course I'm backstage and I'm nervous as it could be, because it's the most iconic country song of all time. I truly believe it's. I mean, I Will Always Love You. He Stopped Loving Her Today. Fishing in the Dark is probably in there. Folsom Prison Blues, and then you've got Friends in Low Places. And the reason why Friends in Low Places I put actually at the top is because every wedding, every bar, every honky tonk, every stadium, every beach bar in a different country, people know that song. So he teed it up and he said, look, you even just grab your guitar, and he said, just play one chord.
Yeah.
And so this is all I do. And just the crowd, 50,000 people go nuts, and then you hit one more, you know. And the crowd is just going even more nuts. Hit that B minor, and so I think he's going to sing it. Yeah. And of course he gives me a headset too, so we can roam this. I don't know, this stage of his fits in 37 trucks.
Wow.
That's how massive the stage is. It covers almost the entire football field. Yeah. And then he says, you can start. No pressure.
No pressure.
Oh my God. I mean, I was ready to cry. But it turned out.
That's really cool. I've heard Garth is one of the most giving artists in the business. That he's always willing to give artists that are opening for him, supporting him, artists that are up and coming that nobody's ever heard of. He's always willing to. I have great stories from so many people I've interviewed that have had their Garth moment.
Yeah. You know? And I think everybody in this business, one way or another, has had a Garth moment, which is an extraordinary feat in itself for him to have had the ability and the opportunity to touch everybody in the way that he has. You know what? That story that I just shared with you is actually one of many. We've toured with him, done almost every Canadian show, Canadian city with him. So, 17, 18 times. And so there's 18 different stories about an encounter backstage with myself or with my grandparents or with my wife, with our children, with Miss Yearwood. He is so welcoming, and that's why not only is he the greatest entertainer, but I think he's one of the greatest human beings
in the
world.
He has a photographic memory.
Yes.
A friend of mine has told stories about Garth remembering him from years ago when he didn't even use the same name. Yeah, I remember you. That's cool. But enough about Garth.
Well, hey, I could literally talk
this kid from
episode
Oklahoma.
after episode after episode about Garth Brooks if you wanted to.
I bring it up because it's impressive that you have that status, that you can be that comfortable sharing a stage with a massive artist, and that's impressive. So that goes to your talent, that goes to your work ethic, that goes to everything else. So
well, I appreciate it, and you know what? Like I said, if I get the good fortune of being able to take some of those experiences, now that my wife and our family, we've been living here in Nashville for the last couple of years. Now that we're able to take all these lessons that we've learned, and our unit, is very, very strong and able to bring it here to the American market, I think we really we'll have a great opportunity to be successful. But most importantly, I think it's up to him, and it's up to our fans to say whether or not it's going to happen. And I'm okay either way.
Cool. You want to do a song for us?
Sure.
And then we'll talk some more.
Absolutely. Well, you know what I'm thinking is that our song came out on Friday.
Okay.
And I haven't had the opportunity to really play this acoustic before. So you spend all this time in the studio, and it actually, when you strip it down, you really see what the song's made of.
Excellent.
So the song's called Drink About Me. We were a million miles a minute, like the world was only spinning around for us. Started a fire and we jumped in it. hotter than the center of the sun. Slow kissing in a fast car, jeans sliding off in the rain. Yeah, tonight it's got me smiling, buzzing on the memories we made. Here's to those days. I hope a margarita puts you on the coast with me. A cold Corona takes you down to Mexico. And baby, when you take a sip of some strong whiskey, does it put you in the dive bar, stealing my heart in a corner booth way down in Baton Rouge, baby? 'Cause baby, after all of this time, one little sip and I miss you like crazy. Tell me, baby, do you drink about me? Do you ever look back and laugh at that time we got so drunk at your apartment playing air guitar like we were Guns N' Roses? See that? Check that out. We were too damn good to forget about, so girl, I'm raising one up now to the moments I'm still holding. I hope a margarita puts you on the coast with me. A cold Corona takes you down to Mexico. And baby, when you take a sip of some strong whiskey, does it put you in the dive bar, stealing my heart in a corner booth way down in Baton Rouge, baby? 'Cause baby, after all of this time, I'm sipping now, I miss you like crazy. Tell me, baby, do you drink about me the way I drink about you? If you drink about me, baby, when you do, I hope a margarita puts you on the coast with me. Cold Corona takes you down to Mexico. And baby, when you take a sip of some strong whiskey, does it put you in that dive bar, stealing my heart in a corner booth way down in Baton Rouge, baby? 'Cause baby, after all of this time, one little sip and I miss you like crazy. Tell me, baby, do you drink about me? Do you drink about me?
I like that a lot. A brand new single that just dropped on Friday. It's called Do You Drink About Me? Go get it. If you're going to stream it 2 million times.
I agree.
So
Or 3 million.
So
folks.
he can go out and get a coffee. Or just buy it and then he can keep more money. and help pay the rent in Nashville.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. Yeah, rent is pretty high here in Nashville, but it's such an incredible city. You know this, all the people that you've interviewed and the people that you've spent time with, and it's a great creative space and an incredible atmosphere. So whether you're a tourist for the first time or coming here, you'd agree, it's an amazing city.
There's a big Canadian contingent down here, so you fit in. You can go to hockey games.
Well, yeah, that's where I run into all my pals.
That's the biggest thing. People say, "Oh, you're from Canada. You big hockey fan?" No, never liked it. Didn't skate until I moved to England. Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah, crazy that you'd have to go all the way to that side of the world.
Yeah, just an ankle skate. Yeah. But yeah, there's a great contingent down here, and it always seems very welcoming. The international contingents here are really great. The Australian one is the same kind of thing. Everybody gets together and celebrates Australia Day and things like that. So
yeah, it's really great to go around, especially during certain times. To see everybody from all the different cultures that have come here to Nashville. The South, in general, is so welcoming in the state of Tennessee, and the city of Nashville. I think is a real
it's a unique
progressive city.
Yeah, it is a unique city. That music ties everybody together somehow.
For sure.
So what are the plans here? You're living here now.
Yeah.
You're out doing dates here.
Yeah, we are. I'm really proud. We've got an incredible agency back home in Canada, and then we've also been able to get signed to my favorite group of people in this entire market is WME, William Morris Entertainment, and so my two agents there have got this really great plan in place and strategy in mind for a bunch of really special plays in the remainder of 2019, and then just get on the road as much as we can in 2020. I'm going to call up a few of my buddies in the business, see if they need some opening acts or some t-shirt sellers or merch sellers, because that's how Martina McBride got started, that's how Post Rodell got started, so I might have to work my way through the merch ranks.
I don't think so. I think you've got what it takes to be on the big bills with the big names.
Oh, thank you.
And my prediction is with your music, I don't think you're going to have a very tough time at all cracking the market here, and I think you'll be headlining before you know it. I really do. So
well, damn, you heard it here first.
So William Morris, no pressure.
Well, thank you.
What's the most distinctive thing that you think you're bringing to music here?
That's a great question. You know what? For me, I would say there's a different level of energy that I want to bring. And a kind of a positivity and a celebration that is a big part of country music, but I want to make sure that is one of the big mandates that I've got in my business, is to celebrate the great moments, to write songs about those things, and to make sure that everything that we do has a positive twist. If you notice in the song Drink About Me, you know, we're still celebrating the greatest moments that a couple has had, that maybe I had with the love that I lost. So we're still celebrating those moments, and I think in this day and age where you turn on the news and there's so many negative stories and there's a lot of hardships and a lot of tough topics, I think it's important to bring an element of positivity and celebrate the good that we have in the world.
I think that's a good point. I mean, I've got to the point now where I don't even watch it anymore.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to.
And I was, prior to moving here, I was a big political junkie, news junkie. Watched it. Yeah. Now, I can't. I have to just ignore it. And I think music is a way of doing that.
I agree. Music has always been an outstanding escape for fans, and I'm a fan first and foremost. Obviously, you're a fan of music, and I think it's really great to have an opportunity to put on your headphones, or maybe put on an old vinyl and escape. You know, I put on CCR or the Eagles or, you know, Garth Double Live, and I crank it up as loud as I can.
Turn the windows down and drive.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's really neat, because you don't often hear, or I don't hear enough about the positivity in the music. It's all about making money and doing the shtick, but it's not about really bringing that positive aspect to the music.
Well, you know what, I think money will come, and anybody who's ever had 1 minute in this business understands that you've got to do it because you love it, and if that's the case, money hopefully, maybe, probably won't, but maybe it will follow later. So I'm not doing this for the money. I'm doing this because I love, I cannot get enough of guitar and songwriting and performing and being in the studio and being on stage. So I would do this for free and try to figure out everything I need to do in my outside life to help support this one true passion.
Which is your favorite aspect of making music? Is it the writing, the studio, the stage?
For me, it's the stage. Yeah. Everything is a means to an end. I'm going to write the song. If you and I got together and wrote a song in a scenario like this,
it wouldn't do any good.
Hey, never say never. I know what you're saying, but you know, for me,
nothing like asking me to sing on your record. No, you just don't want that.
You know what? I actually have thrown a few of my pals who are not singers on the record to do like gang vocals, because it actually sounds like more of a legitimate crowd. Because you know, if you get a bunch of singers,
like Friends in Low Places.
Yes.
When everybody started singing at the end, the one guy screams out "Push Marie," and it's like
it adds an extra element of realness. But you know what? If I'm writing a song and we're creating together, I always think about how are my fans and how are the fans going to react to this. And then when you get in the studio, you try to bring that energy to say, okay, when we play this live, how's it going to go? That way, step 1 is complete, step 2 is complete, and I can get to my favorite part. Get on the stage and play the song.
My UK host, Zoe, was interviewing Jessica Lynn, and she asked Jessica this question. I think it's a great question. Do you write for yourself, or do you write for the fans?
For me, I write for the people. Because that's the most important thing. I draw on personal experience, and the songs that I've written for myself will probably never see the light of day because they're so deeply personal and maybe not relatable. But everything that we do when I get into the writer's room and I collaborate, we write together, we'll draw on personal experience of love, of celebration, heartache, party, happiness, sadness, whatever it may be. And we take those personal experiences, put them in a song, and make sure that it's relatable. And I've learned that from Brad Paisley. I've learned that from Garth Brooks.
Man, you pick people to work with. You don't shoot low.
No, and why? You know?
Yeah, why? Exactly.
If I was going to play basketball, I'd want to learn from Michael Jordan. You know?
Two of the greatest artists to come out of the '90s, Brad Paisley and Garth Brooks, and to be learning all the best stuff from them and avoiding the pitfalls.
Well,
it's like, and you're getting paid to do it. It's not like you're paying for this class to go and learn from these guys.
But you know what? If I was asked to, I would do it in a heartbeat. I think I'd fundraise. I'd start a GoFundMe page so that I could continue to have these experiences if need be, because they've been so valuable and so helpful, I think, in directing me on the right path and avoiding the pitfalls. Like you said, and one of the greatest things about each of those two guys, in Paisley and Garth, is that they're still making music and they're still on top of their game.
And relevant.
So Garth comes out in 1989, Brad around 1998, 1999, and it's 2019. 30 years later, and then 20 years later, and they're still selling out arenas, they're still going out, they still got number ones on radio. What an amazing group of people, for not just me, but anybody in this business, to try to emulate.
Nice. You want to do another song for us?
Sure.
And then we'll chat a bit.
Absolutely. Now, I don't know what your criteria for this show, because I've seen a few episodes, and so people, I mean, we'll usually do original material. Does anybody do covers? Is there anything that you want in particular?
You are our guest,
okay.
So you can do whatever you want to do.
Okay, well then I'm going to do something that is personal, that I do hope that people could, I guess, relate to.
You're watching the Nashville Access Show with Camo. My special guest is Brett Kissel.
Nothing wrong with freedom. I remember when it tasted sweet. No strings attached, nowhere to be. Nothing wrong with money. Nothing wrong with chasing down that dream. I'm thankful that it worked for me. Happiness to anybody else might be a million things. It ain't no secret. The secret to this smile, it ain't complicated. In fact, it's easy to describe. The perfect start to the perfect day. I could say it in a couple words. This morning, having coffee with her. Right down the middle. You can cut my life right down the middle. Before and after I met her. And ever since then, oh man, I don't need much. Her good morning's probably more than I deserve. It ain't no secret. The secret to this smile, it ain't complicated. In fact, it's easy to describe. The perfect start to the perfect day. I could say it in a couple words. This morning, having coffee with her. Oh, happiness to anybody else might be a million things, but it's just one to me. It ain't no secret. The secret to this smile, it ain't complicated. In fact, it's easy to describe. The perfect start to the perfect day. I could say it in a couple words. This morning, having coffee with her. The perfect start to the perfect day. My whole life and my whole world. This morning, having coffee with her.
That's good.
Thanks, buddy.
I'm listening to that, and I'm seeing the big stage, and that's the moment when the lights go down, single spot, you on a stool, just playing acoustic.
Yeah.
And
a bunch of pictures of my little kids and my wife in the background, because that is as much as you think that's a love song for your significant other, which it very much is. Some of my favorite moments are sitting with my daughters, first thing in the morning, making breakfast together. They're stirring the cream in my coffee, and we're just having a great visit, talking about our dreams and what we're going to do today. But obviously that song is based on a Johnny Cash quote. Yeah. If you recall the story, they said, describe your best day, describe your perfect day, describe heaven. And he said, well, it was this morning, having coffee with June.
Oh, cool. That's really neat.
Yeah.
And then just further to the visual that I had in my mind, and you said about the crowd's quiet.
Oh, yeah.
And then one drunk person way in the back,
we love you, Brett! And I'll take that. I'll take that every day, all day. It's funny because of course that happens. I mean that's part of the
moment in the concert.
My favorite one is like some hillbilly redneck or whatever with a deep burly voice says, "I love you, Brett." You know, that one feels good. That one makes me laugh.
I have a banjo.
Yeah. Oh, I've had some good memories. That's for sure.
So the new single, it came out Friday. Please go and download it. If you haven't heard of Brett Kissel yet, shame on you. But if you haven't, you're going to hear a lot more about him. One final question for you.
Sure.
It's your first major North American headlining tour.
Okay.
You're the guy. Your name's this big, everybody else's is that big.
Yeah.
Who's your support?
Oh, that's an incredible question. It's tough to put yourself in that situation when I'd be so excited to support so many other artists. Well, I'm going to go with somebody who continues to put on an incredible show every time I see him. And I would say that this guy would be what I would determine as my very special guest, and this would be a collaborative show. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't even put him in that opening slot. I'd say we start the show together, he does a couple songs, I do a couple songs, and we do some songs together to end the show, and that would be my buddy Devin Dawson. Wow. So Devin's an incredible songwriter.
He is.
This guy is the epitome of cool. He's got swag like John Mayer. Yet he's just this California cool guy. He's everything I wish I could be, but I'm just white Wonder Bread is what I am. I've got no coolness to me. So Devin Dawson, I think, would add a real cool element if we were able to get to tour together. So I'm going to adjust your question. I'm going to say he would not be support. He'd just be a guy I'd like to collaborate with on a massive scale and go out and fill arenas with.
We'll have to get him in here. We've had this a couple times where somebody... Well, Allie, Garth's daughter, was in just recently, and I asked the same question, and without question, so she mentioned this guy who lives up in Kentucky, and he's just this great writer, and she said, like without even thinking, it was like, and that's happened a couple times where somebody has just quickly picked it, and it's like, well, then let's get him in and help support these.
Well, Devin would be a great interview because he's, like I said, he's so comical and collected. And yet he seems to be an old soul. He and I are the exact same age, and it's I feel like he's had a wealth of experience, and he's lived a bunch of different lifestyles, a bunch of different lives. I mean, in being on planet Earth for 30 years. Yeah. So he's an extraordinary talent and one of my best buddies here in this town.
Cool. We'll tag him so he can repay the favor and say you'd have to co-headline.
No, that's a guy I'll go on the road and I'll sell merch for.
Nice.
That's a guy I'll go on.
Brett Kissel, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Man, good luck with everything you got going here. If there's anything we can do to help, and come back again. You're welcome.
Just keep
anytime.
Putting out that good luck into the universe. I'll take all the good luck I can get.
We'll do that. Thanks for watching the Nashville Access Show with me and my guest, Brett Kissel. Make sure you catch me on Chris Country all across the UK every Sunday at midday following the Bobby Bones Show. And on 88.9 Tamworth FM with Jody Crosby and John Wolf every Thursday morning at 9:30. We'll see you next time.